Okay, I'm just gonna admit it. I think the Prince of Persia movie's good. Apparently that's a hot take, especially when you look back at how mostly critical the reception was in 2010. A spectacularly silly video game adaptation about a fresh prince of gel hair. Who runs around the desert with a magic dagger, a curious version of Alfred Molina, and some hoity-toity chick who never breaks a sweat. It's sort of pointless. Okay, that one hurt, Amy. Prince of Persia is destined to disappear into the quicksand of time. Too innocuous to be hated, too bland to be remembered, just awaiting some bright optimist in the distant future to press the do-over button. To be honest, maybe Rick Groen's right. Maybe pretty much everyone's forgotten this movie. Maybe The Prince of Persia is just a boring slog of a film with forgettable characters. They're right, aren't they? Yeah, they're right. Psych!
Pussyclat!
I don't care what Rick says, or what Amy says, or any other lame-ass boomer critic. Stop yapping about this swashbucklingly spectacular masterpiece and go back to the fucking Blitz where you had to hide under your fucking dinner table. I took it too far again. I always do this. Okay, calm down, Harrison. Calm. You've just got to get through this video, then go hide your mum and dad's cutlery across town, and you'll be back in hospital by 9. Alright, I know I just said Prince of Persia is a masterpiece. Yeah, that's not entirely true, is it? Clarification. Prince of Persia is my masterpiece, subjectively. Objectively, the protagonist's love story feels incredibly forced and completely unbelievable due to the fact that the film's pacing is terribly rushed. And there are many things that the original Sands of Time video game did much better than this movie adaptation, which we'll get into later. So yeah, it's not the best movie of all time, but it's far from the worst. Prince of Persia is a feel-good movie perfect for a Friday night unwind after the hard labours of the week. My girlfriend and I had a bit of the old Sands in Time and chill the other night, yeah. And she loved it, the movie. She loved the movie. I was left rocking back and forth in the corner of the room wearing nothing but a pair of tighty whities. I'm doing that thing where I overshare again, aren't I? The Prince of Persia movie is an adaptation of the popular 2003 game, The Sands of Time. The core themes and main characters are the same, but the story is completely changed in the movie. In the game, the Sands of Time are unleashed upon the world, turning everyone into monsters. The Prince and Princess Farah work to return the sands and put the world and its people back to normal. In the movie, Dastan is accused of murder and goes on the run whilst being hunted for the Dagger of Time with Princess Tamina. So, name changes and a completely different plot. I also made a video on the game, and if you want to know more about that, it's linked in the description. Our story begins with a young Dastan before he becomes a Prince of Persia. Here we get to see the intrinsic traits that pretty much embodies Dastan's character, his sense of heroism. Now, funny story, I remember when this film came out, my distant cousin had come to visit my side of the family with his side. He told me the actor that plays young Dastan was in fact his friend at school. Now, hoping this wasn't just a false memory, I messaged my other cousin who I'm much closer with and asked him to ask his bro. Turns out it's true. Anyway, young Dastan distracts a guard from his friend by throwing an apple at him. A chase ensues, showcasing classic Prince of Persia parkour, and again, the bravery of the prince-to-be. He ends up getting caught, but before anything can be done to the poor kid, the king stops it. Astonished by this orphan, he adopts Dastan, the Prince of Persia. This seems cool, but here's my issue. Later in the film, during a verbal altercation, Tamina says this to Dastan.
The walk of a self-satisfied Persian prince. No doubt it comes from being told since birth the world is yours, and actually believing it.
I wasn't born in a palace like you. I was born in the slums of Nasaf, where I lived if I fought and I clawed for it.
And how did you become a prince?
The king marched into the market one day and I don't know, he found me. He took me in, he gave me a family, he gave me a home. What you're looking at is the walk of a man who just lost everything.
I love this scene so much as it adds a layer of depth to Dastan and changes Tamina's perception of him. There's a moment of vulnerability here between them both, as Prince shares a deeply personal sentiments brought out by emotion. The thing is, we saw the backstory at the start of the movie. If we were never actually shown Dastan's origin, then this scene would serve much better as nuanced character development for both characters. Just imagine the viewer not knowing Dastan's origin. They're in the same boat as Tamina. Prince does indeed walk with the stride of a royal. Then when he turns and opens up vehemently to Tamina, it would feel so much more impactful to the viewer hearing this story for the first time. It's such a missed opportunity. What could have been a powerful scene becomes quite irrelevant. But to analyse what we do have here, Dastan's prince-like stride represents his bravery and character. He truly is a prince, if not by birth, then in spirit. I think this scene is the first time where the two actually talk. Like, genuinely talk. Instead of back and forth insults hurled at one another. Okay, we're getting way ahead of ourselves. Let's rewind time. Get it? Because, like, the sands of time and rewinding time and how it, like... A war council is being held in preparation for an attack on the holy city of Alamut. The Persian kingdom believes that this famously peaceful city is working in secret to create weapons for Persia's enemies. Everyone is present at the council, apart from one. Dastan, being the charming, quirky brute he is deep in an organised fistfight. Plucking him away, they reconvene the meeting. Dastan offers to lead the assault on Alamut, but his brothers won't allow it, telling him he's not ready for this. Does this foreshadow pent-up resentment towards his brothers that will later come to a head somewhere down the line? No, not really. But when Dastan goes against orders and sneaks into the city with his ragtag group, managing to open the city gates from the inside, it shows he's underappreciated and underestimated. During the siege, Tamina, Alamut's princess and guardian of the Sands of Time, orders the Dagger of Time to be hidden outside the city. Unfortunately for her, Dastan! He fights it out and comes across the Dagger of Time. Alamut is easily seized and it's celebration all around. As is fitting in Persian tradition, a prince must present their king with a gift upon a great victory. But Dastan, being his quirky cool self, has forgotten to get his dad anything. Not to worry though, Dastan's older brother Tuss has him covered. Later that night, the prince bestows upon his king the gift, a golden cloak. But trickery, deception, double dealings in the air. The cloak burns the king to game end. Okay, this isn't looking good for Dastan. With the help of Tamina, he escapes the palace. They're both now fugitives on the run. How could my brother Tuss set me up and game end my father? Dastan thinks to himself. It really is a sad state of affairs. Later that night, they stop to camp. Tamina attempts to seduce Dastan in order to get the dagger back. Amidst their struggle, Dastan presses the jewel on the hilt of the dagger, and we get to see why this thing is so important. So that's the setup for Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time. Spoiler alert! It turns out that the cloak was given to Prince by his uncle Nizam, who intends to become king in his brother's stead and rule all of Persia. You know, classic villain type shit. Dastan and Tamina attempt to kill each other whilst they're being hunted by Prince Tuss's royal army and Nizam's hired assassins. In the end, the guy gets the girl, defeats the bad guy, and saves the world. Original, I know. Along this journey, the duo meet whimsical characters such as Shikamaar, played by Alfred Molina. Literally every character in this movie apart from Dastan and Tamina were created for the movie and did not appear in the original Sands of Time game at all. As I explained earlier, the game turns 99% of people into demons, so you spend the majority of the game with just the prince and princess. And I know a lot of people say this movie should have stuck with the original narrative, but I'll be honest, I think the movie's story of deceit involving a plethora of characters translate to the big screen a lot better than the original. The game is a 3D platformer and the story serves that style of game. Whereas the movie is definitely not a 3D platformer and so creates a narrative that serves this alternate format. Anyway, I want to go back and talk about Shikamaar. He's the comedic relief character and it works. He's funny as hell. Okay, look, I'm no stranger to bad comic relief characters that didn't need them in the first place. King Jar Jar Binks, what a prick. And you know, the classic fatty poopy butthole boy, funny fart no. But Shikamaru isn't one of those. He's genuinely funny and it doesn't feel forced. He's not useless and actually stands to serve the plot in a meaningful way. And he poses a threat to Dastan, further enhancing the intensity of the chase between the real enemy. This is how you do comic relief characters right. And with Shikamaru, it's not the classic fat man funny trope either. Bro's here complaining about taxes and shit. Another nod to how the kingdom under Nizam's rule would not be good. Amar represents the little guy, but he's not a useless little guy. Also, you've gotta love Shikamaru purely due to the fact that he runs an underground ostrich racing ring. And oh, look at them, they're beautiful. Let's talk about the relationship between Dastan and Tamina. The movie tries to go for the same approach as the game with the progression of their relationship. A feeling of disdain whilst insulting one another, which evolves into flirtatious back and forth banter, and later love with a mutual respect for one another. It works in the game because the player spends 25 or so hours with the two characters. There's more than enough time here to really flesh out interactions with them both, adding depth to their personalities. Then when you see the gradual transition towards them falling in love, it feels believable. They've been through a lot and those experiences serve as character development. Here's the thing. In the movie, Dastan and Tamina go from wanting to kill each other to a friendly old game of tonsil tennis in the space of about 40 minutes. With so much action happening all the time, there's no real space to portray character development. Then, when they decide they're in love, it just feels incredibly forced and unrealistic to the viewer. I mean, not long before this scene, Dastan is genuinely trying to sell Tamina off as a goddamn slave. It's a 2-hour movie tackling way too much at the same time, so I do get it. But in that case, maybe they shouldn't have fallen in love, but instead showed the signs that it'd be possible in the future. That all said though, there's a clear chemistry between the prince and princess which humanizes them in a nice way. And on top of that, there's a good payoff at the end, which I won't spoil here. Prince of Persia: Sands of Time isn't cinema at its finest, but I'll be damned if it's not a really fun film. This is one of my favourite movies of all time. Yes, due to a lot of nostalgia, but also because it's action-packed, witty, doesn't take itself too seriously, and I just love that for what it is. The Sands of Time is a film that I come back to once every few years, and once again, for me, it delivers. Will it deliver for you? No idea. Maybe. Just don't go in expecting a lot, and I'm sure you'll be pleasantly surprised. Right, I'm off. See ya. Oh, check out my Prince of Persia game video.